Welcome back to Brailsford Woodworks Refinished. Today I'll be turning a hollow form with one of my favorite woods, Mulberry. The first time I ever had contact with Mulberry, the wood looked brown on the end, and at first I thought it was walnut. And when I got it out of the pile and I cut into it, all the wood shavings came out were bright yellow. That was quite shocking. But the grain in Mulberry is amazing, and once you finish it, it turns a really nice golden yellow, slightly brownish tint, but it is really kind of fantastic. So here I have the rough piece up on the lathe, and I'm just getting the outside shape the way I want it. And in this case, I'm doing something I typically don't do anymore. I'm adding a mortise rather than a tenon. So I've got the mortise to the depth I want, and I'm using my skew to shape the dovetail so it will hold in the chuck. So I'm on to shaping the top, and I will tell you that Mulberry is a pretty hard wood. It comes in at 1680 on the Jenka scale, not quite as hard as pecan, but it is far higher than white oak at 1320. So I've got the top shaped the way I want. Now I'm going to identify the size hole that I want, and that will be right at the diameter of the holes that came from my faceplate. So I identified the size of the hole using my parting tool, went straight in, then I used my gouge to take out the material in the center. I also used my Easy Wood Tools flathead scraper to clean it up a little bit more. I also take measurements, and then I just dig down a little deeper, get into the depth that I want to go to. After I got the depth where I want, I used my gooseneck scraper to hollow out from the sides. This was actually the first job I ever did with my gooseneck scraper, and I'll tell you what, that carbide, when it's nice and sharp, really cuts amazingly well. And regardless what anyone thinks about carbide tools, I will tell you, and I stand by this 100%, that when you're making hollow forms, it is the only tool to use. So you got to take your time working through underneath the rim, making sure you don't get too thin, and working towards that outer edge. So when I finished hollowing the inside, I decided I wanted some texture on the outside. So I cut a groove with my V-tool, then used my texturing tool to add some stippling around the opening. And from there, it's sanding again up to 400 grit, and then applying some finish. And in this case, it is just straight paste wax. So all that entails is applying a good thick coat and then buffing it off. So now that that's done, I'm turning it over, holding it in the chuck with the opening, and then finishing off the bottom. That'll use my flat scraper to make a chamfer from where the dovetail was down to the lowest part of the mortise. And then more sanding to 400 grit and applying more wax. It's before I had my laser, and I'm applying my brand. about that? I'm pretty happy with that. Mulberry. It's got some beautiful figure up here. Actually has a limb right there. A little bit of sapwood. I think I'm going to do some more hollow forms coming up for a while. I've done a lot of bowls. Time to change it up. Do something different. I love this little textured rim. Came out nice. I'm very pleased with that.